Today is July 19th, 2005, and I'm Jessica Clark, the Teresa Mack Germans from Russia History Fellow and the coordinator for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project. It's a pleasure to visit with Dolores Zimmerman in Wishick, North Dakota. To start with, you want to state your full name, including your maiden name?
Sure. Dolores Virginia Bogie Zimmerman.
Okay, and what is your date of birth?
April 29th, 1933.
Okay, and where were you born?
I was born, I'd say, northeast of Wishick.
Okay. Did your parents ever tell you, or anybody ever tell you an interesting story about your birth?
Well, the only thing that I know is when I went to get my birth certificate, my first name was not listed. The name that was listed was Baby Girl Bogie. And when I asked my parents, I said, well, why was this? And they said they had an argument. One wanted Florence and one wanted Helen. How they ever got to the name Dolores, never really said how it came to be Dolores.
And so you had to go back and change your name for your birth?
I had to go through a lawyer, pay $10 to get my name put on. And my children said, Mom, you could change your name. And I said, do you want a different mom?
And then how did your husband and you share the same birth date, right?
Yes, we do.
And you went to the same school?
Well, I went to rural school until I finished 8th grade.
Okay.
Delmer and I met when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
And, he was in 8th grade and I was a freshman in high school. But we really didn't associate with each other because, after all, I was in high school and he was still in grade school.
When you think back to your childhood, what would you say is your first memory, one of your earliest memories?
One of my earliest memories, that I could remember, I think one of the first memories I had is the fun things we did as a family. I know we spent a lot of time, my dad would make games for us to play. He was a wonderful card player, and I remember playing cards. My mother would never play cards.
Really?
She always got the snacks ready and everything else. But just, and that was just the first four that did this. When the others came, we didn't do that anymore. But playing cards and eating ice cream and treats and the games he made for us.
What type of card games did you play?
Oh, we played, what was one of them called? Not whist, it was called, right now, can't even think. But, what did they call it? Right now my memory fails.
Well, if we think of it, we can come back and mention it. When you think back to the nature and the environment of the time during your childhood, what did you think of the prairie?
Well, I guess sometimes you take it for granted because it was always there. It's just something that was there.
Okay.
That's how I grew up, and we never went any place to compare. My parents never traveled.
Really? Okay.
I think the only place my parents ever went with us was to Jamestown, North Dakota.
Really?
And Bismarck, North Dakota.
Oh my
But
goodness.
that was rare. The rest of the time was spent on the farm.
What did you find beautiful about nature around you?
Well, and a lot of wild animals.
Okay.
Birds. I love birds. And, in a farmhouse at night, when you had your windows open, you could hear the crickets and the frogs. And I think that just kind of put you to sleep.
Oh.
And all kinds of birds, when you were outside. That intrigued me all the time. And to this day, I love bird watching.
Do you have a favorite bird that you just really like to see?
Well, I like the blue jay, but they're very mean.
Okay.
I have bird feeders up, and when they come, everybody disappears.
All the other ones are gone.
They're so beautiful.
Okay. How about, was there anything that you found unpleasant about nature or the environment back then?
Well, there were some animals that were unpleasant, like skunks and things like that. But other than that, I think you grew up there, and it was just part of life for you. It wasn't you know, actually we didn't have to compare it to anything if you never
Mhm.
left.
Yeah.
We never saw mountains. I never saw a mountain until we traveled as with Elmer and myself.
What'd you think of your first mountain?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. That there was something that beautiful, but also awesome and scary. You know, when we would drive the side of the mountains, at times I thought we're going to go over the top, and of course you wouldn't. But mountains were awesome because you're coming from a prairie.
Yeah.
I never had seen one before. That was awesome for me.
When you were growing up, what were winter months like?
Winter months for us were fun. They were. After work was done, and at night especially, we could go out and do sledding. We had hills behind our house, and we would be sledding all night until it was time for bed. Everybody had a sled. Sometimes there was an accident. They'd come up the hill, and you'd come down the hill and accidentally hit them, but that was okay too.
Did anybody ever get hurt doing that?
Well, one of my brothers got a gash in his face, but
Nothing.
nothing serious.
Okay.
But we spent a lot, and also on the ice. We skated on the ice. We had a lake close by.
Okay.
Winter was a fun time. It really was.
Do you think when you look at today's winters, do you think there was more snow or was it colder back then
There
there?
was more snow, and I don't know if it was colder. We probably didn't notice the cold,
Okay.
but I know there was more snow. One year we had, there was a barn, and then there was a shed next to the barn, and the snowbank was as high as the barn. We could run up the snowbank on top of the shed,
Oh my goodness.
and we'd jump off and slide down. Yes. I don't think we've ever had that much snow that
Oh,
I can remember. That
okay.
was fun. We were out playing, and my second brother, Clarence, he was always mischievous, and we weren't supposed to go to the stock tank where the cattle drank water, and he took a stick and he was going to hit the ice and break the ice, and he fell in, and we were bundled up, and we were so scared to tell that he fell in, so we all kind of hid behind the barn. And actually, my parents came looking for us, and if they hadn't, he probably would have frozen to death.
Oh my goodness.
But we were scared to tell we did something we weren't supposed to do.
What was their reaction to that?
Well, no, I don't think anybody got a spanking. Probably just a lecture.
Lecture. Don't do that again.
You're right.
Okay. What about summer months? What were summer months like?
Summer months were fun because what I remember doing, we were horse people. We got a lot of horseback riding,
Okay.
and that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Everybody had a horse, and we just rode horses and had a good time. Something else we did a lot of is my dad's brother was married, and they had 15 children.
Oh my goodness.
And on Sundays, we'd go visit them. And we always wanted to go there because there were so many kids, and it was so much fun. So in the summertime, we did a lot of visiting to families.
What types of things would you do when you'd go over to?
Oh, we'd play this Andy over, throw the ball over the outhouse, and run at people. That was one of the things we played.
Okay.
Or hide and seek. We played a lot of baseball and softball as kids.
Okay.
We loved that. That was fun.
How many horses did you have when you were growing up?
Oh gosh, I can't even. We all had horses. We had a favorite. Buster was his name. He was easy to ride. You didn't even need a saddle on him.
Really? Okay.
He was kind of a favorite of all of us, I think. We had Shetland ponies. We had a stallion that we weren't supposed to ride, and I did. Ran away with me and hit the broadside of the barn.
Oh yeah, okay.
And my ankle was hurt but not broken.
Okay.
I was told never to do that again. All the boys got to ride him, and I had to too.
Gotta prove that you're as good as them.
That's right. Something else, I shouldn't say this, something else, when my parents would go to town, they would leave us alone.
Okay.
so when they went to town, we had cows in a corral, and my brothers decided to play rodeo. Well, I didn't ride the cows, but they did. And so they said, well, you're in charge of the gate. So when they sat on this calf and it would come, I'd open the gate and they'd ride out. And so to this day, they still call me the gatekeeper. At the rodeo.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh,
The things kids get into.
we got into a lot of things as kids, though. We gave beer to a chicken when we were drunk.
How'd the chicken act?
They just walked around in circles and just cackled. You know. Something else we did when we were left alone, they grabbed a calf, pulled it into the chicken coop, and they fed it all the eggs that day. It was eggs. Well, when my mother came and Dad came home, she went to the chicken coop to find eggs. There weren't any. So she said, what happened to those eggs? Well, none of us said anything. The chickens didn't lay that day. How do we know?
Did she ever find out?
I don't think. We told later on. When we were older.
Way later?
A lot later.
When you couldn't be punished anymore?
That's right. We were too big. We did a lot of silly stuff like that.
Okay.
When kids are left alone, you know, they think of things to do.
It's time the mischief comes out.
That's right. It does. It really does. Ours did.
How old were you when your parents started leaving you home alone?
Well, my oldest brother must have been about 12.
Okay.
Okay. And I suppose they felt he was able to handle the others. So. I suppose they did take us to town. I suppose we'd beg and want to buy things, so it was easier just to leave us.
Mhm.
You know.
Out of their hair.
That's right. That's right.
What was your favorite time of year? Your favorite season?
Spring.
Why is that?
You know, after a while, winter got to be long and tedious, and spring came, and you could be outside more. You didn't have to, you know, dress up a lot and bundle up, and just the smell of the season, the trees, and my mother had a wonderful flower garden, and just smelling those flowers, you know. So spring was my favorite season.
Okay.
My mother's was fall.
Really?
And the reason for that, she always said that was the time of the year when she no longer had to work outside and she could spend time inside with her family.
Oh.
So everybody has their own special reasons for having seasons.
That's nice. Did you know your grandparents on either side of the family?
Yes, I did. Very much so.
Okay. Let's start with your dad's parents.
And that was Jacob and Catherine Bogie.
Okay.
I love Grandma Bogie because she was a very short lady and she was, well, very round. And the thing I remember about her, when you hugged her, you couldn't even get your arms around her, but she was so soft.
Really?
And she was always so pleasant and so nice. At Christmas time, she always had candy for every one of the grandchildren. Always had candy. And they weren't wrapped in anything special. It was just a little brown bag with candy, and everybody got this when you came.
I bet it meant the world to all the kids, too.
Yes. I did get to know my Grandpa Bogie very well. I
Okay.
think he was kind of a quiet person. And I think he spent more time with the boys than he did. Because I was inside with Grandma, and he was outside with the boys, I suppose.
Where did they live in relation to you?
They lived northeast of Wishick, not too far from where I was born.
Okay. So did you get to see them often?
Very often.
Okay.
Yes. Especially when the families got together. They had 16 children, and a lot of their children lived around here, and they would all gather, and it was really a lot of fun. Oh, there must have some, like I said, one of my uncles has 15 children or 16, and families were big. Some had 13. Well, we had 7. I mean, when you put all those people together, it was fun.
Yeah. Did your grandparents, they came over from Russia, right?
Yes, they did.
Do you remember about when that was?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did they, when they came over, is that the north of Wishick? Is that where they originally settled?
Well, when my grandfather came over, he was 16.
Oh, okay.
He was not a citizen yet, so he had to become a naturalized citizen.
Okay.
My grandmother came with her parents, and I learned something when we did research on the families. We had a family reunion about 7-8 years ago. Because she was a daughter and still very young, she did not have to be naturalized as a citizen. She automatically became a citizen.
Really?
If you were
Oh.
not. Evidently 16 or what was the age where you'd have to.
So there's like a cutoff point where you were just
Yeah,
Oh.
when we went to the Heritage Center, we found things there.
Interesting.
Automatically citizens.
I never knew that.
Yeah, that was something really good for me too.
Do you know how your your grandparents met?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Did they speak when you would go over to their house? What language did they
German.
Did they know English at all, or?
They must have known some. Actually, I didn't know English until I started school.
So it was a hard experience starting school then, or?
Well, I don't know if it was hard. I remember if you did speak German, you got your mouth slapped.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
You didn't dare speak another language.
I guess that would frighten kids from.
Yeah, and you're little and you pick up the English language very easy. But my dad, because I suppose they didn't want to lose the German language, at night after supper, when we'd come home from school after supper, there was a book we had to read out of in German. And then my oldest brother even had to learn to write the German script.
Really? So can you still?
I can read some of it.
Okay.
If you're away from it, you forget.
You're not using it.
I can not easily, but I would say plow through it.
Get the gist out of stuff.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Turning to your well, first, how many children did your grandparents have on your dad's side?
I think there were 16.
16 of them. Okay. Turning to your mom's side, what were your grandparents like on that side?
There again, I liked my grandmother more than my grandfather.
Okay.
I didn't get to know him that well.
What were their names?
Margaret and Jacob Coates.
Okay. Okay. And where did they live in relation to?
Well, for a while they lived on the farm where we were.
Okay.
And then they moved into town, and then we lived on the farm by ourselves.
So what was it like living with your grandparents?
I can't remember that much. We were little.
Okay.
And there wasn't much, that you could remember.
Okay.
But I remember visiting them in town after they moved.
What was that like?
It was fun to go there. My grandfather raised pigeons.
Really?
Yes. And they ate pigeons.
Oh my goodness.
I never ate them because I thought, I just can't eat a pigeon. They did.
That's a first. That's a first.
They ate them.
Huh.
Yeah. My grandmother had a piano in her living room, and you didn't dare go into the living room. Nobody went into the living room. That was just preserved. Maybe when they got other company, and they had a piano, and I wanted to play piano, and she never let me touch it.
Huh.
I wanted so badly to learn how to play piano.
Did you ever learn how?
No, I took an adult course, but that's as far as I went.
Did they also speak primarily German in there?
Primarily German, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they also came over then from Russia?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Do you know about how old they were when they came over?
I haven't done that much research on that family.
Okay.
I've done more with the Bogie family.
Okay. How many children did they have?
They had 5 daughters, my mother and 4
Only daughters, yeah.
Only daughters. And as a result, my mother was just like a man. She had to go out and plow and do all those things.
Huh.
I think she had a hard life as a young woman.
Yeah. What's your father's name?
My dad's name is Adam.
And your mother's name?
Bertha.
Bertha, okay.
Margaret.
So is your brother Adam a junior, or is he...
Adam Gordon.
Okay.
No. And he's the only boy that got a middle name.
Really?
Yes. And they all wonder why. Was he better liked?
Your mom and dad never mentioned why they decided?
No, they just, and I have to tell you something interesting about their names. My sister was named Bertha after my mother. Well, we didn't like that. Her middle name is Shirley, and so we started calling her Shirley. We said, we don't like that name, and we're like, so we 4 older kids decided that she was a Shirley.
So her real name is Bertha.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And then Adam, we didn't like his name either. So for the longest time we called him Apple.
Really? He never mentioned that.
Probably should have. But yeah, we called him Apple.
Huh. Why was that? Just
because we thought that he should have had a different name.
So you came up with
So these 4 older kids were trying to rule the roost, I think.
Were there any other nicknames in the family?
Well, the brother that is a year and a half younger than I am, I don't know how he got a name. His name is Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and we called him Peasy. I don't know why or whatever, but you know how you make up names?
Mm-hmm. And it kind of stuck when he was a kid? Interesting.
Well, my grandmother called me Sissy for the longest time, and I didn't like that. And so one day I stood my ground and I said, I don't want to be called Sissy anymore. Call me Dolores, and she did. But why she called Sissy, I hated that.
That doesn't even go with it.
No, I suppose sister or sissy.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. My little brother used to call me that because he couldn't pronounce my name, but
Oh.
that was a different story.
Yeah, right.
When you think back to your childhood, what did you think of your dad? What type of a person was he?
I loved my dad because I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but he made an effort to spend time with me. After supper at night, he would help me do the dishes.
Really?
And he and I could spend time, because he spent most of his time outside with my brothers.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of time together to visit and talk. And he made an effort to do that with me.
Oh, that's really
Dishes had to be
special.
done. He and I did the dishes. I washed and he wiped.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yes, he was
That's
a very nice person.
Now that's almost unheard of.
That's right, for that time.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh.
He made an effort to do that. I suppose he saw that, we had no communication, nothing, all day long, and he felt the need.
So then would you say your dad was a very affectionate person?
Not really.
Okay.
Not like they are today, but I think the things that he did showed you that he loved you very much. I think he would have sacrificed anything for you or given you anything you needed, I think.
If he was ever upset or angry, how would he express his anger?
If he was angry, he'd kind of walk away. He never really yelled or screamed or, he'd just walk away from it. Maybe because he thought, if I get too angry, I might do something,
The silence was his
The
reaction?
silence was his way.
Okay.
And I noticed when he and my mother argued, he would do the same thing.
Really?
And I think that was very frustrating to her.
She wanted a reaction.
Right, she did, I'm sure. But that's how he dealt with things.
Okay.
Very quiet.
Would you say you were really close to your father growing up?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I can remember I had an uncle that would come over and spend time at night with us, and he eventually married my mother's sister. And he'd play the harmonica, and I got to sit on my dad's lap, and of course he would,
Oh.
move his legs up and down, and you'd be listening to the music.
His little princess on his lap?
That's right. That's right.
What was your uncle's name?
It was John Becker.
Okay. And the aunt that he married?
Emma.
Emma. Okay.
My mother's sister.
Okay. How about your mother? What type of a person was she?
My mother was very loving, very giving, very. I tell you, the boys were rambunctious, and Mother dealt with them with the dish rag. That was her way. And many times, I think, she would chase them around the table, and they really weren't afraid of her.
Yeah, Adam mentioned that hurt when she connected.
I know, but how often do you think she connected?
That's what he said too.
I think so, yeah.
Would you say you were close to her?
Yes, very close. I was very close to my mother.
Was she an affectionate person?
Yes, she was. She really was.
Okay.
She was so, affectionate with her sons, her daughters, grandchildren. She just was so affectionate. They all adored and loved her. She was a wonderful cook.
Was she?
Oh, she was.
Did she pass on that traits to her daughters?
Yes, she did. She sure did.
How about anger? How would she express her anger?
Well, she'd scold and lecture, and use the dish rag.
Vocal?
Very much so, yes.
Opposite of your father?
Different personalities, that's true.
Okay.
That's right.
Who would you say between the two was the stricter one?
I would say my dad.
Your dad?
Yeah.
Okay. What type of rules were there? Do you remember growing up with certain things that you were not allowed to do?
Well, I think we lived pretty sheltered. That we didn't go to a lot of places. I think we were demanded to have good manners and respect for people. Like if you talk to your grandparents, you had to show respect. There's a German word that they use when they address each other. The word is du. When you addressed your grandparents, you had to say ihr. And if you didn't say that, you were called on the carpet. That was a way of not showing respect to your grandparents.
Okay.
So those were those things.
Okay.
But other than that, it was have respect, good manners.
Okay. When you think back to your parents as a couple, would you say they had a good marriage?
Yes, they did.
Do you know how they met each other?
They met at a barn dance, I guess.
Really?
I guess they were wonderful dancers.
Okay. Did they continue to dance throughout your childhood?
No, not, I can never remember them dancing, But my mother said you couldn't go to dances until you were confirmed and probably 16. And when she and her sisters would go to these barn dances, they were not allowed to wear makeup. So they took the paper from a Hershey candy bar and they wet it, and they made rouge out of that.
Really?
And they said we had red cheeks and red lips.
I've never heard of that before.
That's what she said.
Oh my goodness. Huh. That's an interesting way of doing it. Let's see. How many children did your mother and father have?
They had 8. Their first child died.
Okay.
They lived only about 4 days.
Oh, so it died in infancy.
Yes.
You want to run down in order the children?
Okay, there was the baby that died, and we found out his name was Clarence.
Really? Okay.
And then my next brother was Leroy, and then Clarence, myself, and Floyd, and Shirley, Reuben, and Adam.
Okay. Out of all those brothers and sisters, who were you closest to?
Clarence.
Clarence. What was he like?
He was just a fun person, mischievous. When I was able to, starting as a teenager, to go somewhere, well, Leroy never took me anywhere, the oldest one. I suppose he didn't want to deal with a sister, but the brother next to me, Clarence, if he'd go visiting his girlfriend, he would take me along, and then they used to have roller skating out here at the sales barn or something. And he said, you go roller skating while I go visit my girlfriend.
Oh.
So he really was. He and I were very close.
Since I've interviewed Adam, what was he like when you were growing up?
Adam was a very quiet kid. He really never talked a lot. Shirley did the talking for all of it, I think. But he was quiet. When things were happening, Adam would stand back and just ponder things and never really said much. And I think that is even true today.
Okay.
Adam will sit in a crowd and listen. He's a good listener. And then I think after he's made his decision, then he talks. That's Adam.
You talked before with the pictures that it was almost like a two-family home.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was it like taking care of the babies?
Well, Shirley was first, and I was really new at it, and I did learn how to do it. My mother taught me well. And then came Reuben, and that was easy, and then came Adam, and by then I was an old pro. Really.
What did you think when the first baby came into the house? What did you think of Shirley?
Well, Shirley was born at home,
Okay.
and that day she was born, we were told that we could stay outside all day long. And my dad brought lunch out and things. We couldn't go in the house. And then, of course, my grandmother came out, and the midwife came out, and then all of a sudden my dad came out, and he said, "Come into the house, I want to show you something." And there was Shirley, a baby. I mean, we were in such awe. Where did this baby come from? Because we really did not know where babies came from. How did this come about?
So that wasn't something that they would talk about then?
No,
to
never. And I was delighted it was a sister. I wouldn't be the only girl anymore. And first thing I did, my mother kept candy bars in the drawer, and I went and got her Hershey bar, and I told my dad she can eat it, and he said, "She can't eat a Hershey bar yet." So I was going to feed her Hershey bar.
Oh. So when you got older, would they talk to you about babies then when you were getting older into your teenage years?
I'll
or
tell you, I didn't know that she was pregnant with the second child either, with Reuben.
Okay.
And then when Adam came, when sometimes when your parents go to town, you snoop around the house. Well, I snooped in their closet one day, and I found a suitcase full of baby clothes. And I'm wondering, well, what are these baby clothes here for? Well, when my mother went into labor, my dad grabbed that suitcase. And in my mind, I knew there was going to be another baby. She went to home to have the baby delivered. A doctor over there had set up a home for pregnant ladies, and he'd deliver the babies, keep them there for 2-3 days, and then they'd come home. But after that, then my mother went through the whole spiel.
Okay.
But I was 12, mind you.
Oh, my goodness.
We were very sheltered.
So when your mom was pregnant with Shirley and Reuben, did she not get very big, or?
My mother was a heavy-set lady,
Mm-hmm.
and at that time, they wore these aprons all the time. And what did we know? If we didn't know anything about
Yeah.
births or anything, you weren't aware of that.
Huh. That's interesting.
It is.
It's really
It
interesting.
is.
Do you think how different it has
How
changed today?
What kids know today. You're
Too
right.
much.
Yeah.
Let's see. What type of things did you do with your brothers and sisters when you were growing up?
Well, we played a lot of ball outside. This Andy over, you
Mhm.
threw the ball over the toilet, and tag, hide and seek. That was a favorite. But then on a farm, you have a lot of places you can hide. Those are things we did.
Okay. Was there any competition between the children?
Probably with the 2 older boys, more
Okay.
so, I think. They got into a lot of arguments, and my dad settled that real fast. They were not allowed to abuse each other, be physical.
Okay.
That was just a thing.
Respect each other.
Respect each other, and you don't get out of hand. Because I think Dad would have just taken care of it.
Who did what around the house? Who was responsible for like the washing and the cleaning and the cooking?
Actually, I was with my mother.
Okay.
My brothers didn't ever do any housework.
Really? Not a
Never.
one? Oh my goodness.
Never.
So how would you do laundry, like the wash back then?
Well, Sundays we'd go to church. And there was my dad and the five brothers. Well, they all wore these white starched shirts. Well, on Mondays, these shirts would have to be washed, and they would be starched. And my mother would say, when you iron, be sure you don't burn them. And you still had those irons that you put, those flat irons you put on the stove.
Oh.
That was my job.
Did you ever burn any?
I did. I got really good after a while.
Oh my goodness. Huh. What would you what would you use for like soap to wash the?
They had homemade soap.
Okay.
They made a lot of their homemade soap.
Okay.
The lard and the lye and things like that.
How about things that we kind of take for granted today, like brushing our teeth and deodorants and things like that? Were those common back then?
Deodorants weren't,
Okay.
but brushing your teeth was.
Okay. That was. Would you do that like you do today, as regular, like once in the morning and once in the evening, like recommended by the?
Once a day.
Once a day.
No.
Okay. What about outside work? Who was responsible for what outside?
Mostly the boys.
Okay. Did you or Shirley ever have to go out and help when you were growing up? Or your mom?
I did with the milking.
Okay.
Helped with that a lot. Feeding of the chickens and the turkeys and things like that. That was my job.
And you were born in
33.
1933. Do you remember any of the 30s at all?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. I was going to see if, like, any of the sand, because they talk about the sandstorms and stuff, but
No, I wouldn't
never.
understand it.
Okay.
I would hear my parents, later on talk about the dirty 30s or that time, but I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I was born but not experienced it.
Yeah.
Or
Too young to really.
Yeah, right, to remember anything like that.
Okay. What about a garden? I'm assuming your mom had a large garden.
Huge garden, huge.
Who tended to it?
My mother and I.
Okay. What types of vegetables would she grow?
I tell you, she grew everything, Swiss chard, broccoli, you name it, she grew it, cabbage. And then we also canned a lot of these things for the winter.
How would you do that? What was the process like for canning?
That was what they called the hot bath. You
Okay.
put it into a jar, you put it to a canner with hot water, and you cook at a certain time, and then it would seal, and you'd have your vegetables for the winter.
Would
I don't
you
think they ever bought vegetables.
would you can any meat or?
Oh yes, lots of meat was canned.
Okay.
The beef, the pork, chicken, turkey, goose, and they smoked a lot of the meat also.
Okay. In that smokehouse that we saw that
Yes,
picture. Okay.
that's right.
We saw a picture of your family home, but if you go inside of it, what was it set up like? How many rooms and?
I remember there was a porch, enclosed porch in the front,
Okay.
and I remember when Shirley was born, during the day, she was in a buggy, and that's where we kept her, and there was a kitchen and a living room, and I think there was a bedroom on main, and then the rest of the bedrooms were upstairs.
With so many kids, where did everybody sleep?
I tell you, the three boys slept together, and I had my own bed, and then when Shirley came, I had to share with her.
Okay. And then when the younger boys came, did they have their own bed? Or
Yes.
the older ones were.
We're gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So were all the kids in one room, or were girls in one, boys in the other?
The girls had their own room, the boys had their own room.
Okay. Okay. How did you guys keep the house warm in the winter?
Furnace.
Okay.
We did have a furnace.
Okay. How would you keep food cold in the summer?
In the summer, they would put it in a pail, and they'd hang it down the well. Or they had a house where they separated the milk and the cream, and they had a tank in there, and they had water running continuously, cold water.
Okay.
A lot of the food was put into a pail or jars and put into that tank.
Oh,
Your
okay.
milk and your cream, so it wouldn't turn sour.
When you were growing up, when would your year start? A typical year start for you? Like for students, it usually starts in the fall with school in beginning. But when did the year start for you during your childhood?
Well, what do you mean by when did it start?
Like when would you say, oh, this is another year to come?
I don't know. I think we just took it for granted that, you were another year older.
Okay.
You got newer clothes, things like that. But I don't think life changed that much.
Okay. So it wasn't like today where you have a starting point with a cycle or anything. Okay.
I think we were very sheltered out on the farm. More so, I think, than people that lived in the city.
Okay. In the area that you grew up, what was the predominant ethnic group? German. Were there other ethnic groups even around?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Okay. Um, let's see here. How about looking to your daily life and your daily routines? What what would be a typical day? If you ran me through a typical day, what time would you get up in the morning?
Early,
Early?
very early, because the milking.
Okay.
You had to be up early for that. When I was little, I didn't have to help with that, but when I got to be the age where you can help, you had to get out to the barn early and milk cows.
Okay. And then what would you do after you milk cows?
Okay, then after that, you'd separate the milk and the cream and fed all the animals that needed to be fed, and then the whole family would come in for breakfast,
Okay.
and then the rest of the day, whatever had to be done, if they had to go out to the field or things like that.
What was a typical breakfast like?
Oh, they had toast, there was meat all the time, eggs. I can remember when Delmer started coming out to visit me, he said, "You have meat 3 times a day." They did not, because they were very poor.
Um,
And he was just shocked by that you could have meat 3 times.
yeah, that most of the interviews that we've had, they once maybe a day.
But when you're a farm,
Mhm.
food was available. They often say we were poor and didn't know it,
Yeah.
because you had food.
You were raising it. You were
You
self-sufficient.
were raising it yourself and you survived, right?
Yeah. Um. What types of, talking about raising your animals, what type of animals did you have on the farm? You mentioned cows and horses, but
We had ducks and chicken, pigs, geese, turkeys. Some of those you had to deal with. Geese especially would chase you. Turkey gobblers would chase you.
ornery ones.
Or you had to have a broom or something handy at all
Okay.
times.
How hard was it to keep the house clean when you were growing up?
Well, I don't know how hard it was, but my mother was very strict. I remember one day I scrubbed the steps coming down from the upstairs, and she kind of swat me in the neck, and she said, "You have round corners." I said, "Well, what do you mean by round corners?" She said, "You didn't get the dirt out of the corners." So I think the German-Russian ladies were very, very much into cleanliness. Very much so, I think.
You've mentioned a lot of the games and stuff that you played as a child. How about, did you remember any of the books that you read or stories that were told to you?
Oh, books. I couldn't remember.
Okay.
I don't think there were a lot of books available. I think we were exposed to books more so when we started school.
Okay.
That is far. I know we had a lot of German books at home that you had to read, things like that. But I don't think when we were that little that they had a lot of books available.
Okay. How about any sayings or prayers that you would say on a regular basis that you grew up with?
Well, there was always the breakfast prayer.
Do you remember that?
Well, it was done in German, and believe me, I haven't done it in a long time. It was Aber lieber Father Amen, whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And you said that 3 times a day at your meals.
Okay.
That you had to do.
Do you remember any other sorts of sayings that your father or mother had or you grew up with?
Right now I, don't really
Okay.
think of it.
Did you grow up with any superstitions or scary stories that you would tell your brothers and sisters or?
Well, my mischievous brother would always talk about things, like look who's standing behind the barn and trying to get you. Or, that. But other than that,
Just to kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that you wanted to play the piano and you never did. Did anybody in your family play a musical instrument when you were growing up?
No.
Okay. What about singing? Did anybody sing?
Oh, we sang as a family.
Did you? That was a pastime to do?
It was, yeah.
Do you remember any of your favorite songs when you were a kid?
After, Shirley and Reuben and Adam sang a lot together as 3 kids. And they sang a lot of the old-fashioned hymns.
Okay.
Fly Away, all the old standbys, Standing on the Promises, Count Your Blessings, and things like that.
Neat. Since we're talking about the hymns, it's actually a good transition into religion. What religion were you raised?
Lutheran.
Lutheran?
Mm-hmm.
And how important was it to your family?
Very.
Yeah. Would you go every Sunday to church?
Yes. Mm-hmm. If possible. Well, in the winter, depended on the weather.
Okay.
Because we lived close to Lair, and church was over here at St. Luke's.
Okay.
At St. Luke, I should say.
So you have a good connection then with St. Luke's.
Yes, my mother was first baptized there.
Oh.
My mother was confirmed in that church. My mother and dad were married in that church. And my oldest brother and my brother next to me and I were married in that church as well.
Oh my goodness, there is a strong family.
There is, yes.
So the centennial meant a lot to you
did,
then.
Yes.
Okay.
When they celebrated the different churches, when they had a celebration for St. Jacobus,
Mhm.
that was a church that never really had a church. They always met in a schoolhouse.
Oh.
And it was called Jacobus because the people that started the church, there were a lot of Jacobs, and one was my grandfather, Collins.
Oh my goodness.
And so when they were celebrating that Sunday, they asked me to be a reader for the Jacobus celebration, which really pleased me a lot.
Oh, that was a great honor, I bet.
Yes, it was. And I wore my grandmother's babushka, or her shawl that she had brought over from Russia
Oh.
that Sunday.
Oh, that's a treasure to still have that.
Yes, it is. It really is.
What was Sunday school like when you were growing up?
I think it was a fun thing. It really was. I think we just had fun.
Okay.
I can't remember, things that you did, but it was just a fun place to go.
Do you remember if there was ever anything, we've talked, talking with Delmer, he couldn't play cards. There was restrictions that he had. Was there any restrictions when you were growing up like that?
No.
Okay. Confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well, that was, I think, the first time that I met with people that were not my friends. We had to come over to St. Luke. We lived in close to Lair. And I met some girls from Ashley and some from Zeeland. They came up here, and we became good friends, and to this day we still see each other and talk about it.
How long were the confirmation classes?
You had to go 2 years, every Saturday.
Okay.
And then in the summertime, you had to go a whole month. And we'd have to come over here, and they would meet in the high school building. And then for 2 years, every summer for a month, you had to do it.
So, since you lived so close to Lair, was there not a Lutheran church over in Lair?
There was not. There was not a Lutheran church.
Okay. What was the relationship when you were going through confirmation? What was the relationship from the students to pastor?
I tell you, we had a very strict pastor, very strict. And he required a lot. You had to learn a memory verse every day when you got back. And I really stuck to that, but my brother didn't.
Which one? Which brother?
Clarence.
I should have known that.
We got home from confirmation one day, and he took an axe, and I think he was going to chop wood or something, and he chopped himself in the knee, right above the knee. Well, the flesh was laid wide open, and you weren't taken to the doctor to get stitches. They just healed it.
Oh my goodness.
And
you're fine.
Okay. And I remember one morning the pastor said, "Clarence, do you know your memory verse?" And Clarence told him what happened, and then from then on, Clarence wouldn't do his verses, and Pastor Doyen would say, "Oh, I know," he'd say, "you had a lot of schmetza, a lot of pain, that's why you didn't." And he had as much time as I did to learn his verses.
Just never did. So did he go through confirmation then?
Yes,
And
he
he
did.
passed?
He did.
What was the day of confirmation like?
That was an exciting day. It really was for me.
Yeah. What would you have to get up in front of the congregation and?
Not get up, but you were called upon to recite a verse.
Okay.
And I was deathly afraid I wouldn't know the verse he asked me to recite, but I knew it.
So did you know ahead of time what you had to prepare, or was it a question?
I think it was a question.
Okay. Did your family have a celebration for you afterwards, or?
No, we just went home and had Sunday dinner.
Okay.
Just like we always did.
Was Sunday dinner different than a typical dinner?
Yes, it really was. Because Sundays, one thing they always had soup on Sunday. They always had like a 4-course meal. You had soup, and then you had your main meal, and then you had probably salads or whatever, and then you had dessert. And dessert was always pie. Always pie.
Huh.
And there were different kinds. With all those kids, my dad loved lemon. The boys loved the chocolate. And I really didn't care, but I liked pie.
Huh.
That was always.
Okay. Since we just finished talking about religion, seems kind of natural to turn to holidays. What was your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Why is that?
Lots of goodies, candy that you didn't. I'll never forget, you got oranges and apples. And you did get a lot of that during the year. And that was wonderful to have an apple and an orange. And lots of candy. My mother made all kinds of homemade candy and cookies. She was a wonderful baker.
What type of homemade candies and cookies would she make?
She made fudge. She made divinity, caramels, you name it, she made them. She was just a wonderful cook.
Do you still make those today when you do it?
I do sometimes, yes.
Okay.
Not a lot, but I do.
When you were growing up, did you have a Christmas tree?
Yes, we did. It was an artificial one.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
At that time, it was an
Oh my
artificial
goodness. And how would you decorate it?
We made things. And although my mother did have some decorations, I think that she probably purchased or something, but I really can't remember.
Okay.
But there were decorations, and we made things.
Okay.
Like the chains,
Mhm.
things like that.
How would you celebrate Christmas Eve?
We were always at home, and we would go to church, and then we'd come home, and that's when we would open presents.
Oh.
But I always believed there was a Santa Claus.
Okay.
And one time they put us in the car to get ready to go to church service, and my mother and dad ran back into the house. And what they did in there, I don't know. But when we got home, there were gifts. And I finally figured out they were Santa Claus.
How old were you, do you think?
Oh, probably 8, 9.
Okay. Did your other brothers already know, or?
I don't know if they did or not.
Okay.
We just probably never talked about it.
So Santa Claus was pretty big then?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
That was important.
How about Christmas dinner? What was that usually like?
Well, usually she had ham or chicken or turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy, of course, and the Christmas cookies and things like that.
Was Christmas
And usually homemade ice cream.
Oh. Was Christmas a time that was celebrated with the immediate family, or would extended family come
With
over?
Extended family. My grandparents, especially on my mother's side, would come.
Okay.
Her sisters would come. And then a lot of times we'd go visit, like, on my dad's side. But they were such huge families, you know, they had their own things to do.
Yeah.
But my mother's family was smaller, and they were included.
Okay. How about Easter?
Oh, we dyed eggs, of course.
Okay. Was there any other traditions that you did around that time?
Not really. It was just the egg dyeing.
Okay.
And the baskets, of course.
Okay.
And when we'd get up in the morning, things were in the baskets, treats, candy, toys, things like that. That was always fun.
4th of July.
That's when we got to go to town.
Which town would you go to?
We'd go to Wishy-Bertolaire.
Okay. What types of things would the towns do for the celebration?
You know, I think they had foot races and things like that. There wasn't a lot of carnival type things or anything like that.
Okay. Okay. New Year's.
Uh, I think New Year's was to spend with family, the
Okay.
immediate family. We never went out celebrating or anything like that.
Halloween.
Not much was done with that.
Okay.
Not much.
Thanksgiving.
Well, Thanksgiving really not, because that was their butchering time.
Okay.
You know, these brothers and their families get together, and that's when they did the butchering for the winter. So Thanksgiving was not really a big celebration.
Was there any other holidays that you can think of that were celebrated when you were growing up?
Well, not really.
Oh, I got one. Birthdays.
Oh, yeah. Birthdays, you got a gift, and my mother usually made a cake.
Okay.
But that was the extent of it. There wasn't a lot of,
Not the
like
big parties.
people in and things like that. It was a very quiet birthday.
Family
You knew
celebration.
that day it was your birthday, and you had a gift and a cake.
Okay.
It was very simple.
Healthcare. We've touched upon it a little bit, but what was anybody in your childhood seriously injured or ill at any time when you were growing up? Okay. Did your mom have any home remedies for if someone got a stomach ache or a fever?
If you had a stomach ache, they had this mint flavoring in a bottle. You took, and she would put sugar in a teaspoon and put some drops of the peppermint or something on there, and that relieved your stomach ache.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Any other home remedies that you can remember?
What were some of the other things? I can tell you, I think we were pretty healthy as a family.
Not a lot of illness.
No, I don't, not really.
Did anybody in your family ever go see a doctor for any reason?
I think I did at one time. I was still quite small. I had a tumor in the top part of my the inner thigh, and that was removed, but that's the only time I ever remember going to a doctor.
How about a dentist?
Not as often as we should have.
Okay. What was it like to go to the dentist back then?
Scary. It was.
Yeah. How about the eye doctor? Did any of you have to go to the eye doctor?
I tell you, I don't think anybody wore glasses until we got to be teenagers.
Really? Huh.
I know my mother wore glasses, but where they went, I don't know.
Okay.
You know, as a kid,
Yeah. What about funerals? What were funerals like back then?
Funerals back then, if somebody passed away, the body was brought to the home. Like when my grandparents died, the body lay in state in the living room.
Okay.
And then the day of the funeral, they were taken to the church.
Do you know about how old you were when your grandparents died?
When my dad's dad passed away, he was killed and he was run over by a train. I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
When my dad's mother passed away, I was probably 9 or 10. I don't remember much about that.
Okay.
And on my mother's side, I was already married and gone from home when her parents passed away.
Okay.
They lived to be quite old.
When you think about the funeral services back then, are there any traditions that have changed over the years from then to now?
I don't really think so.
Okay. Okay. How about weddings? What was a wedding like when you were growing up?
The only wedding I remember is Cleo Bogie. I don't know if you know him or not.
Mm-mm.
That's Joan's husband.
Oh, yes. Actually, yes.
I remember that wedding. His parents just celebrated their 65th wedding anniversary.
Okay.
And that was a wedding in a garden. And his sister and I were about the same age, and we were just in awe to see a wedding in a garden.
Huh.
But I remember that. A lot of the weddings were in houses.
Okay.
They were not in churches. I know my my mother's sisters, I think they were all married in the family home.
Really? Okay.
And there were just immediate family there. There weren't a lot of people invited.
What about, doesn't connect with weddings at all, but politics. What, were your parents into politics at all?
No, not at all.
Okay.
They went to vote, but I mean, they were not vocal about politics like they are today.
We talked a little bit that about the community, that mostly it was German Russian. What about when you started going to high school and you would go into the town? Would the town kids react differently to the farm kids?
They did.
How so?
They felt they were superior to us. They really did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would they make fun of you
Well, I don't know if they'd make fun of you, but they'd say, "Oh, farm kids," or I think they really looked down on us.
Did you notice ever if was the clothing different between farm kids and town kids?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I wore the same kind of clothing
That
the
they.
girls wore there.
Okay. Okay.
It was just something that I suppose they thought they were bigger, smarter, better.
Okay. When you think back to the farm, we've talked about the house a little bit. What other buildings were on your farm?
Barn, garages, chicken coop, pig barns, turkey barns. They were, separated. Granaries. My brother and I, the brother next to me, we were in the granary, and there were two bins. One was wheat and one was oats, and there was kind of a hall between. So he got into one side of the granary, and we threw the stuff at each other, and we mixed the wheat and the oats or whatever. And my dad came in, and he saw this. That's the first time I ever got a spanking from my dad.
Really?
Floyd didn't get any, and I said, "Why didn't he?" And he said, "You were older and should have known better."
Bet you never did that again.
Oh, no.
What about farm equipment? What type of farm equipment did your dad have?
Well, there were tractors and hay racks and wagons and headers, and I'm not into machinery that much.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to do with the machinery.
You were in the
I
house.
got to, use any of it or anything like that.
Okay. How about crops? What type of crops did your dad have?
Well, they had wheat and oats and barley and just the grain crops.
Okay.
Flax.
Do you know how your dad came about the land? Did he inherit the land, or did he purchase it?
No, it was on my mother's side. The grandparents were getting older, and they needed somebody to run the farm, and so they moved to town, and we stayed on the farm.
Okay.
And actually, what my dad did, he ran the farm for them, and they got a certain amount, for raising the bushel or whatever, and then money came back to him. And later on, he purchased the farm.
Okay.
It became his.
Okay. That's a nice family tie to it.
Yes, and my grandmother, that's my mother's mother, loved my dad. She was just so enthralled with him. Well, she said he was such an honest person. When he grew crops, he made sure they got their share. And she admired that. She said he could have cheated us, but she said, "I know he never cheated us." And so she really loved him.
That's nice to have the family ties.
That's right. He really was.
So is the land still in the family, or has it since been sold?
That's been sold lots of times over to many different people.
School. What was school like?
I always loved school. The day I hit the classroom, I thought that was the most fun thing to do. From first grade on through high school. It was fun.
When you think back to your childhood, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I guess I really didn't think about that until I was in about the 6th grade. We had a teacher. Her name was Leona. And when she taught there, every day she'd come and she'd have a dress and shoes to match. Blue dress, blue shoes. And I thought, this is really wonderful. And she was a terrific teacher. And the day she read to us in literature class, she read The Great Stone Face to us.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's a really neat story. And she also read Evangeline, that love story.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to be a teacher just like her. That's when I decided that teaching was going to be my career, I guess.
Okay. So would you say she was probably one of your favorite teachers?
She was. She really was. She's still living today.
Really?
She's in her 80s.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Since you went to a rural school first, right? So was it a one-room schoolhouse?
Yes.
Okay. When you walk in the door, what's in the school room?
Okay, when you walk into the building, there's kind of a hallway, and to the right side there is a coat room, and to the left side there's a coat room, and for the boys, for the girls. And then you walk into the school, and there's just one building. There's a potbelly stove.
Okay.
And it was always cold, and when you were really cold, you could go sit by the stove. Sometimes you got a little bit too warm.
So how far was the school from your farm?
Maybe a mile.
Okay. And did you guys walk every day?
We walked it a lot. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Although we felt it was like 10 miles. It really was. On the way home, my brother, of course, Clarence, he'd always try to scare me. There's a bull coming, you better run, and I'd run my heart off.
He was the...
He was. He was a favorite. He really was.
Would you say you were a good student?
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved. Once I got to read, I think I couldn't stop, and to this day I read.
Was that your favorite subject in school as literature?
Oh, it was.
What about least favorite?
Math.
And then your husband taught it for many years?
Yes, right. Yes.
Okay.
But reading opened the world to you. It really opened it for me. I think that's why I devoured the reading.
What about German? Were you allowed to speak German in school?
Well, at first, when we started, when we came, like I said, we were not allowed. I can remember the teacher slapping my brother's mouth because he was speaking German.
Okay.
And so we talked it on the playground with each other, but when you got in the building, you made sure you didn't talk it.
Was that hard for you, coming from a German home, to adjust?
I think when you're little like that, you absorb another language very easy.
Okay. What about school supplies? What type of supplies did you need?
Well, we had the tablets and the pencils and things like that. And,
Okay.
We really didn't have book bags like we do today. You had to bring your own lunch.
And how would you bring that to school?
There used to be, a long time ago, they bought this syrup in these tall syrup cans,
Okay.
and that was your dinner pail. And so
Oh.
each one had their own, and you would bring whatever you took that day to school.
What would be a typical lunch?
Okay, a typical lunch would be homemade bread and some butter on it, homemade butter, and then this brown carrot syrup. And by the time you got to your lunch that day, the sandwich was pretty soggy. But you ate it.
Because that's what you had.
That's what you had, right?
Okay.
Or sometimes we had meat sandwiches because we had, meat was available to us.
Okay.
I'll never forget, we had one family, they had bought bread. And we trade. They wanted homemade bread. And we'd like the box, so we traded. We never had bought bread. What was that like,
Now it's the opposite today, most people.
Yes. But, oh my goodness, it was bread. It was perfect.
What were recess and noon hours like?
They were fun. Because you went outside and you played ball. That's what you did.
Okay.
Or Andy over, things like that, hide and seek.
How about the holidays? How were the holidays celebrated in school?
They had plays.
Okay.
Put little skits on. Other than that.
You know, today we have like celebrations for like Valentine's Days and we pass out cards. Did you do things like that back then?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did trade Valentine cards. I wish I had some of those today. Wouldn't those be collected?
Oh, I had one person who still had, his teacher had the one he gave her in 4th grade, and then she had just returned it.
Oh, how neat.
So,
Those must have been wonderful.
yeah, and it was a homemade one too.
Yeah.
So, food. Who prepared the meals in your home?
My mom,
Okay.
with my help.
With your help. What was how did the family sit down at one table and have dinner
Yes,
together?
Always. 3 times a day.
Okay. And did everybody have like a spot where they sat and
The brother next to me always got to sit next to my dad.
okay.
And he never had to eat the crust of the bread.
Which brother was that?
Floyd, the one right after me.
Okay.
And he didn't like the crust, so he got to eat the middle of the bread, and my dad would eat the crust. And after a while, we always said, well, he must be the favorite child.
So, dinner time, was that a time to have a conversation or was it
Oh,
quiet?
yes. No, it wasn't quiet.
Okay.
It was talk, talk, talk.
What would be some of the foods your mom would make regularly for dinner?
Well, breakfast was the ordinary ham, sausage. Lunch would probably be sandwiches, some vegetables that she had canned, some fruit she had canned. And supper was the big meal.
Okay.
You know, a roast, mashed potatoes, gravy, veggies, dessert always. She always had desserts.
Okay.
She was a wonderful baker.
How about traditional German dishes?
Oh, yes. We had the Nefla.
Okay.
We didn't make strudels at our house.
Really?
My mother never did. We made the dumplings.
Okay.
And we always figured she was too busy because it takes time to do strudels, and dumplings are easier. The cheese buttons, I like those. And always soup, bean soup, vegetable soup of all kinds.
Yeah, Adam said the one thing he didn't like was the cheese buttons. Said she would make him a special one without the cottage cheese.
She would just put those little turnovers in and nothing in them. And we got to eat those.
What was your favorite meal that your mom would make?
My favorite meal, I think, was chicken.
Really?
Chicken and mashed potatoes and gravy.
How about your least favorite?
I think beef.
Really?
And I'm still not a beef eater.
Not a beef eater.
No.
How about your favorite dessert?
Pie.
Any type?
Any kind.
Any kind.
I'm a pie person.
What was it like when you first got electricity?
That was wonderful because I didn't have to clean all the chimneys on the lamps. That was my job.
Okay.
Every day.
Oh.
I got soot.
Yeah, and so you'd have to wipe them out.
And
Oh.
you washed them and you wiped them, made sure you didn't break anything. And was that marvelous to go to the switch and switch on lights. That was liberation for me.
So when you would wipe them, did you ever break anything?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
But my mother always had extra chimneys.
really?
She must have known.
Wasn't too big of a deal to her. You just
No.
tried not to, but
Right. You tried your best.
okay. How about a telephone? Did you have a telephone?
We did not have a telephone. I think maybe until I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
Did not have a telephone.
Where did you stay when you went to high school?
We drove back and forth.
You drove back and forth?
We only lived 2 miles north of here.
Okay. Okay. What about the radio?
That was wonderful. On Sunday nights, we would sit and listen to the radio. The Shadow.
Oh.
We'd hurry and get the chores done because we would listen to these programs. Amos Mrs. and Andy, Fibber McGee and Molly, and we'd all sit around the kitchen table, my mother and my dad and all the kids, and listen to all these programs on the radio.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
that was fun.
So it's kind of like today where you sit around the TV. You would sit around
I think so.
Okay. What was it like when you first got a television?
We never did, as long as I was home, we never had one.
Okay.
The first television we had, Delmer and I had when we got married in 1953.
Okay.
Other than that, I didn't even know what a TV was. I didn't.
What about movies? Going to the movies.
After I got to date, I got to go to movies.
Okay.
I'll never forget the first movie I went to was over here at the Wishing Theater, and it was, who was in it? Can't even remember. Well, right now I can't remember.
Okay.
But that was the very first time. So,
How old were you?
I'd say maybe 13 or 14.
Okay. Were movies a pretty big thing then, back then?
It was, and after you were a teenager and could go, my brother would take me. Saturday night was a movie night.
Okay.
They had a beautiful theater here, and this is where we went.
How much did it cost to see a movie back then?
I don't even know. It must have cost very much. 50 cents.
Okay.
I bet it wasn't even $1.
Okay. Very cheap to go.
Very.
Okay. What did the older generations think of the movies? Your parents and
I
grandparents?
don't think my parents went to movies
Okay.
ever that I can remember. Even in their older age, I don't think they ever went to movies.
Really?
They did not.
What about clothing? We talked a little bit about it, that you would purchase some of it.
In the store here, it was called the Herr Mercantile, and it was like a department store. They had clothes, they had anything under the sun, I think. Also the catalog.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which one?
Well, there was Sears, there was Montgomery Ward's.
Okay.
Those were the ones they ordered from.
Okay. Your mom didn't do a lot of sewing, you had said, but did
No.
she do mending at all?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So did I. Had to mend socks.
Okay. How often would you get new clothes?
I think we got new clothes in the fall and in the spring.
Okay.
Well, by then you'd had outgrown them.
Yeah.
So.
Did you do a lot of hand-me-downs with?
Well, I didn't, but the brothers did.
Okay.
There was no older sister for me, so.
Okay.
There was never a hand-me-down.
What about World War II? How did that affect your family?
Actually, not very much, because I don't think we had any close relative in World War II.
Okay.
And I was just a kid, not,
You were 12
Yeah.
when it started, yeah.
Well, 1933, when did it start?
45.
Okay.
So.
I was 12 years of age. I can remember them talking about it on the radio, but when you're 12 and like I said, I think we were sheltered, not exposed to a lot of the things. I think you really didn't pay that much attention to it.
Did rationing at all affect your family?
Yes, it did.
How?
You couldn't have sugar, and so you did get a coupon so you could get some sugar. But my mother decided to make a cake with this brown carob syrup, and it wasn't really that bad. She used that as a substitute for the sugar. And then she made the most wonderful frosting with this brown carob syrup.
Improvise.
Yes, it was very good.
I think back then a lot of the women were good at that.
They were. That's right. You had to make do with what you had. I can remember they would buy like 100 pounds of flour in the fall, and that would last till spring.
Oh my goodness.
And by spring, that 100 pounds was gone because they made all these dough foods,
Yeah.
and cookies, and breads, and things like that.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sure they bought as much sugar to bring home because there was, they didn't always get to town.
Yeah.
And as far as fruits and vegetables, they were in your pantry downstairs, so that's basically all you needed from town.
Looking at your teenage years, what were they like?
My teenage years, I don't know. I can't say that I had friends, but I didn't get to town like a lot of kids did.
Okay.
Even as a teenager, we were a close family, and we spent a lot of of time at home.
What was high school like?
It was difficult at first because you came in from the farm and the town kids thought you were dumb and not as smart as they were. But by the time I was a sophomore, I knew the ropes.
Well, from what I've learned from this project is that you would be pretty lucky to go on to high school. Was education valued in your
Not
family?
for girls,
Okay.
because my parents thought the boys should get an education, and I really had to beg to go to school.
Okay.
School. No matter how bad it went for me in school, I never complained because the first thing you don't have to go, you can stay at home. And my goal was never ever to live on a farm. So I went to high school.
Okay.
I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school. My two older brothers did not go.
Really?
They wanted to be farmers.
So
My
they
dad was
stayed
happy
back?
about that.
Okay.
I was the first one in my family to graduate with a college degree.
Oh, that's something to be very proud of.
Yes, it is.
That's really neat. How old were you when you started dating?
Probably 16 and a half.
Okay.
My dad was very strict. He decided who could come and take me to a movie. And there were very few boys that were allowed. Delmer was allowed to come. And the reason for that is Delmer worked in a garage at Lair.
Okay.
And my dad would go there to buy cars and things. And I think he kind of knew Delmer. And so when Delmer started coming, that was okay.
Okay. So do you remember the first time you met Delmer?
Well, it was in high school. He was a grade behind me. And we really didn't start dating until, was he a junior and I was a senior?
Okay.
It started late.
Okay. What would be a typical date that you and Delmer would do when you think about back to then? From today's standards, what's different?
A typical day?
Yeah.
I mean, when we went on a date or something
Yeah.
like that? Well, he'd come out and pick me up, take me to a movie, and have to bring me home.
Okay.
There was no running around or, there was a certain time you had to be home, and that was it. And my dad was very, very strict on that.
How long did you date before you got married?
Okay. We started dating maybe 4 years.
Okay, so that's a long courtship there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was the wedding like?
It was a typical wedding. We got married in St. Luke. We had a reception at Lair.
Okay.
What they did at that time, they sold the bride's shoe.
Oh.
And that was to make money for the bride and groom.
Huh.
And you know what? When our children got married, we still do that.
Really?
When my daughter got married, she got married here in our house, and we just had immediate family and her husband's family. And would you believe they got $500 for the shoe they did?
Oh my goodness.
And then at our wedding, they also would sell the wedding cake. They would sell piece by piece, and that's another way you got money to start with.
I've never heard of those traditions.
That was something that they did way back.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
But selling that shoe, I'll tell you. Even my nieces think that's great. We had
Yeah.
last September, and the wedding was in Bismarck, and she got married to somebody not from this area. And when Adam and those guys were in charge of this shoe, and they got out and explained, what do you do with this shoe? Well, the other side of the family, they weren't going to let anybody else buy this shoe, so
So is it just one of the shoes?
one shoe.
One shoe?
They steal the bride's shoe, and then they start the bidding. It's a fun thing.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it.
It is.
Oh.
It really is.
Honeymoon, did you